Most people consider chocolate a guilty pleasure. But the truth is, every bite sends chemical signals to your brain. It can sharpen focus, steady your energy, and lift your mood within minutes. That's why chocolate ads so often show people smiling or lighting up with joy. For 1,000 years, chocolate has been used to change how people feel, sometimes through chemistry, sometimes through story. The Aztecs and Mayans drank a bitter, frothy cacao brew whisked with water and spiced with chili and other flavorings known as chocolatl. Warriors drank it for stamina before battle. Nobles used it as a source of focus and energy. Even the Aztec emperor was said to drink gallons of cacao each day, convinced it boosted vitality and desire. And while the legends were probably exaggerated, they weren't entirely wrong. Cacao does contain compounds that act on the brain. And when cacao reached Europe, sugar and vanilla were added to soften the bitterness and chocolate was transformed again. By the early 18th century, chocolate houses began to rival coffee houses as gathering places for philosophers, writers, and political thinkers. Chocolate was marketed as a drink that offered both indulgence and intellectual stimulation, capable of fueling insightful debates and fostering creative breakthroughs. The idea that chocolate could unlock the mind had deep roots, and modern science shows us why. The cacao beans carry a handful of compounds that act directly on the brain. First is caffeine. Not as much as coffee, but just enough to block adenosine, a chemical that makes you feel tired. An 80% dark chocolate bar has about 15 grams of caffeine per 30 gram serving, which is just enough to give you a mild lift. And with the adenosine blocked, you feel more awake and alert. Theobromine, chocolate's main stimulant, provides a smoother, longer lasting focus than caffeine. It also improves blood flow to the brain and relaxes blood vessels. And then there's phenylethylamine, or PA, often called the love drug, which activates dopamine. These are the brain chemicals that are tied to motivation, excitement, and the feeling of being in love, contributing to that small mood lift after eating chocolate. And finally, there's anandamide, literally named after the Sanskrit word for bliss. It taps into the same brain receptors as cannabis, giving you that short, satisfied, almost zen like feeling after a bite. So, when people describe chocolate as intense, rich, and blissful, it's not all marketing. There's real chemistry behind it. But here's the catch: you need to eat 80 to 100% dark chocolate to feel the strongest benefit, but that's extremely bitter. So the companies add sugar, vanilla, and other ingredients to make it taste better. The sweeter it gets, the weaker the actual brain benefits become. So if the chemistry is not strong enough, how do you make it seem magical? And that is with storytelling. Luxury brands like Lind slow everything down in their ads. Dark lighting, silky textures with words like intense and mindful. While Galaxy ads lean into the feeling of bliss. They are all amplifying the same feelings your brain gets from theobromine and anandamide. In other words, modern ads echo the brain chemistry but just turn up the volume. But one thing's clear: with ritual, science, and marketing, we have always had a chocolate brain. With all the benefits, there's got to be a better way of eating this bitter bar of chocolate, right? The thing is, the flavor of the dark chocolate is locked inside the cacao butter, and it only melts at the body temperature of about 32 degrees Celsius. So the best way to enjoy it is to put it in your mouth and wait for it to melt. And slowly, the bitterness fades and the richness comes alive. Which is your favorite dark chocolate? Let me know in the comments below.